So I just beat Like a Dragon Black Panther, or the Japanese title, Kurohyou Ryu Ga Gotoku Shinsho, a PSP Yakuza spin-off only released in Japan in 2010. Thanks to Team K4L, a fan-led localization team, I was able to play this game with their wonderful English localization patch. So, huge shout out, I'll leave a link to them below if you actually want to play this for yourself. It was really easy to set up. This game was a journey and a lot better than I actually expected. First of all, it's a full-fledged RPG experience. Obviously, there are cut corners on things like the overworld graphics, and the graphic fidelity in general because it's a PSP game. I have to give a lot of credit to the cutscene artist because it's just fantastic. You have this limited color palette and moving painted manga kind of art style with these moving manga panels that give a semi-animated feel. Everything looks painted in a chaotic but kind of constrained way. You can see the brushstrokes of all the different set pieces and characters, but all of it wrapped together seems so purposeful. This also means the action shots are just great. You have exaggerated limbs and movements that you would see in the manga, but it's honestly drawn so well. And it's also slightly animated, so it's not too boring to stare at during the typical long Yakuza conversations. Now, you can definitely assume they wanted this style to cut costs on animating 3D scenes, but it worked so well that I honestly wish they would do more of this because it looked great and a lot of the cutscenes were really engaging to watch. Aesthetics aside, I really feel like the devs fit as much game into this game as they possibly could. For a PSP game, it's surprisingly dense. You know, I'm not too familiar with the system, but they really wanted to make sure this was an RPG experience. I mean, there's even the character creator for an online mode, which unfortunately I didn't get to mess around with. There's this whole customization system and co-op and a bunch of shit that looked pretty cool, but since I was playing on an emulator, I couldn't really test it out. And a side note, with this character creator system, I think this also bleeds into their like NPC outfit generation. So the enemies have a lot of variations, and the amount of 2010 swag in this game is fucking dope. You got the full Kamurocho map filled to the brim with cabaret clubs, mini games. This game has bowling. There's like 3 games in this franchise that have bowling, and one of them is a PSP game. Bunch of sub-stories, and even shit other games don't have, like part-time jobs with, you know, scooping out ice cream like you're back at Papa's Freezeria, or grabbing the correct burger out of the burger lineup. I don't know why the burger shop is set up like this, but it doesn't really make much sense. They're just sending out random items and then the main character has to grab it. Now, the minigames aren't really that in-depth, but they're a decent source of income, and at a certain point in the game, they're kind of your only source of income, so you do have to play them a little bit if you're trying to power your character up. But now I want to talk about the gameplay. Unlike the rest of the franchise, this game is mostly one-on-one or one-on-2 or 3 kind of gameplay rather than a much more open beat-em-up where you can fight like maybe a crowd of enemies that the original Yakuza games are built on. The base moveset is a little different, meaning you don't have as much options as usual. Instead of combos, you have high and low punches and kicks, 4 grabs, built-in counters, a 3-level heat system for 3 different built-in heat moves, and a punch/kick charge attack or finishing move. The injury system seemed really novel at first, and it was really interesting, but it quickly became very irritating. Every different body part or limb can take damage during a fight, and that damage stays with you afterwards. This can affect your stamina, speed, and I believe your heat gain. Obviously this affects enemies. It's more important for you because you're the one who has to walk around and do multiple fights. I'm a fucking dumbass, so I chose the hard difficulty thinking, yeah, I got this, you know, I've played all the other games, I'm gonna do good, I'm gonna be a good gamer. You know, I thought my prior Yakuza experience would carry me, and it did not. This game was hell for about 60% of the battle encounters. So many combat encounters of this game were absolute bullshit. First of all, the general street encounter rate on hard was insane. I mean, I don't know if it's like this on the other difficulties, but every fucking 4 seconds when you're walking around, you get into a fight. It got to a certain point where I was just speeding up on the emulator, mashing punch, hoping that it would just fucking finish the fight, because it was wasting so much goddamn time fighting people every single corner I walk on. It was crazy. And another layer on this fucking shit cake, this game uses the archaic ass inventory system. Your small inventory has to hold heals, it has to hold buffs, it has to hold injury recovery, which is another separate item from heals, and it also has to hold your gear. It was just insane. There was a certain point near the middle of the game where I was just like, I'm done. I can't do this. I'm giving up. Now, typically in these games, there's an item that gets rid of street encounters. Of course, I looked up, how to find this item in Black Panther. And to get the No More Street Encounters item, you have to beat the #1 guy in the side gauntlet mode, which is essentially a bunch of 1v1 boss fights. That was hell. That was fucking hell. Of course, I tried to do this as early as possible, because I did not want any more street encounters, and I quickly ran into someone who was way too high of a level for me. So my option was to fuck off and wait till I level up more. Now, your fighting style has a level. You also have your own set of stats that you can train with money. So my choice was to either grind out the fucking burger and ice cream jobs until I can get enough stats to actually do the boss fight gauntlet, or be a fucking gamer. I didn't do this until much later, but yes, I did beat the #1 guy after a couple of attempts. The main thing that helped me was learning that counters are super good. I mean, I mostly relied on counters and grabs in this game, but landing the same counter over and over just negates anything an enemy can do. Again, I have to reiterate, some of these fights are fucking bullshit. There's a huge problem with mashing in this game. If an enemy grabs you, you have to mash X. And apparently, according to game facts and other old ass forum posts, it is insanely hard to mash. I saw some comments on those old threads that said they never mashed out of anything during the entire game. Now, I don't know if it's because I was on the emulator or if I'm just a god of a gamer, but I was actually able to escape a grab maybe once a play session. I've done it a handful, less than 10, but I have mashed out of grabs. There's also a head-on thing where if you grab each other at the same time, you gotta mash the D-pad, and then when you get knocked down, you have to mash. So there's just so much fucking mashing in this game. I mean, it's just a lazy mechanic, man. The hardest fights for me were the gauntlet missions and some of the main story missions, specifically Tenma and a couple others that I can't remember the names of. Tenma gets stronger as you're fighting him, and this motherfucker, for some reason, the bosses in this game, they can counter you. They will grab you. They can pretty much do everything you can do, but on hard mode in this game, it's just insane. It's just insane. So while Tatsuya has a level 3 heat move finisher, the enemies do too. There's a couple times during the dragon heat fights where they would do it 2 or 3 times in a row, and it made me lose my mind. I wasn't a fan of this mechanic because the only way to not get hit by a finishing move is to just run around. So you end up getting put in this stupid ass, you're just running in a circle around him until he tires out. And then you gotta wait to see if he does it again or not, or if he ran out of heat. The last fight takes place on top of the Millennium Tower, like a lot of the Yakuza games do. And this place is gigantic. So when that guy was doing his final heat move, I would just run away and he would just get tired. Really, for some reason, it was the easiest boss fight. I don't know why. Now, while I am harping on the combat and, my dumb decision to play on hard and all this stuff, I still had a really good time with Kurohyou. Now, in Like a Dragon Black Panther, you play as Ukyo Tatsuya, a dropout delinquent who's kind of a piece of shit. He is pretty dripped out though. I mean, this outfit is insane with the slicked back hair, the shaved sides, and the matching jacket and pantsuit combo. I mean, that's a crazy fit to just introduce this character with. Tatsuya is a troubled youth who gets wrapped up into the usual Yakuza gang conspiracy once he robs and supposedly kills an important Tojo clan member. This game, right from the start, is pretty heavy and surprisingly dark. Tatsuya is a brooding, misguided teen who often resorts to violence in a whole bunch of different situations, and after this dramatic character-defining moment. He's blackmailed into fighting for the underground arena Dragon Heat and promised freedom once he wins 10 fights in a row. The story definitely hooked me in pretty quickly, and its progression was paced pretty well. Of course, you need the patented RPG suspension of disbelief with certain aspects of the story, but that's usually how it is. I love Tatsuya's blunt, edgy attitude in this game because it's so different from the mainline games. Most of the sub-stories have him just telling people to fuck off. He doesn't really mince words at all, and he kind of just throws a tantrum every time he's confronted, but overall, Tatsuya's a great protagonist. Through his 10 fights, his journey of course goes through a lot of twists and turmoil, as you would expect in these games. He ends up going from a tough, shithead kid to someone a lot more empathetic and respectful, while learning a whole bunch of different mixed martial arts, and Tatsuya has a great progression and overcoming of challenges in this story. I'm not going to lay it all out for you, but I definitely don't think he's a throwaway protagonist, and he also has a second game, which I have not played yet. I do have a couple of gripes with the story. This game isn't perfect. I do think it's underrated, but it definitely ain't perfect. There are maybe 2 or 3 main story missions where the objective is walk around and gather info, which got pretty annoying, especially with the enemy encounter spawn rate. I've definitely grown to dislike this kind of objective in Yakuza games because it's kind of a fallback way to push the story, and I mean, this circumstantial way of getting info doesn't even make sense for other protagonists, and it makes a lot less sense for just a random teenager to be hearing like really important information. Some of the main story does meander a little bit to feel like padding. There's multiple missions. You spend time shopping with one of the side characters, Saki, who helps and patches you up throughout your underground arena career. Tatsuya has a few conversations with her, and it seems like a budding relationship until it just goes nowhere. Tatsuya has a nice moment with another character, Tenma, that really becomes a good friend, a really trustworthy person, and I expected this kind of friendship for Saki, but it just, I guess they decided the plot didn't have any space for her, and also that Tatsuya hates women. She literally helped train him, bro. What is he talking about? It was a different time. It was 2010. It was a different time. These certain aspects of the plot were a little disappointing. Overall, I do think the story was a good time. It was just as entertaining as any other Yakuza game. There's somewhat of a charm on playing on such an old spin-off of Yakuza that it was really interesting to see how they formatted this game for the PSP. Now, I'm not too familiar with the PSP or the fidelity of other games during this generation, but I genuinely had a fun time playing this game, and it felt like a really good translation of the Yakuza gameplay to a handheld device. You know, if you're a fan of this franchise like me, you've played all the games that are available through remasters or on console, this is definitely a game worth checking out while you wait for Gaiden and Infinite Wealth to come out. And thanks to Team K4L, they've translated both of Tatsuya's games. I haven't played the second one yet, but I'm probably going to eventually. Also, there's a sub-story with Hana in it, and that was just amazing. That was amazing to see her, because she's only in 4. And then they fucking forgot about her. This game is underrated as hell. Now, I don't think it would ever get remastered or maybe a kiwami version from RPG in the near future because, you know, it's an old spin-off and there's other games that they would get to before remaking this game, like Dead Souls or Kenzan. But if it ever did happen, I think it would generally be really great because Tatsuya is a great character and there's so much potential there for a protagonist that really stands out from the rest of the other protagonists. I will say, I did get genuinely frustrated, so please play on normal or maybe even easy. Alright, if you made it to the end of this video, please consider subscribing, like my video, check out my other videos. I yip and yap about games all the time. I'm a big fan of the franchise, but I think I have one other Yakuza video that's pretty old by now, but I do plan on making more. But yeah, I hope you have a good day and I'll see ya. Bye.